Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 2 college football rankings. So, going over last week's rankings and what those teams did in Week 1. Last week at number 10, I had Penn State. They beat West Virginia 34-12. 9 was Utah. They demolished Southern Utah 49-0. 8 was Missouri. They beat Murray State 51-0. Alabama was 7. They dominated against Western Kentucky 63-0. 6 was Ole Miss. They won 76-0 against Furman. 5 was Notre Dame. They beat Texas A&M by a score of 23-13. 4 was Texas. They beat Notre Dame 52-0. 3 was Ohio State. They demolished Akron 52-6. 2 was Oregon. They beat Idaho 24-14. And 1 was Georgia, who took care of Clemson, winning 34-3. So this week's rankings, coming in at number 10, I've got Penn State. So Penn State beat West Virginia by a score of 34-12. It was a game that saw a long delay, but it didn't impact Penn State. Their offense was great with 34 points. Drew Allar threw for 216 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Penn State as a team rushed for 222 yards on 5.3 yards a carry. Then defensively, Penn State was great, allowing just 12 points and forcing 3 turnovers. But after a good win in Week 1, Penn State remains at number 10. 9, I've got Utah. So Utah did what was expected and destroyed Southern Utah, winning 49-0. The offense was great, obviously putting up 49 points. And Cam Rising also played well in his first game of football in over 600 days after torn ACL. But Rising played a good game, going 10 of 15 for 254 yards and 5 touchdowns. And he was also still good as a runner, although didn't run a ton, with 4 carries for 25 yards. And then Utah also had 185 rushing yards. Then defensively, Utah was great with his shutout and allowing just 150 total yards. But Utah, after a dominant game in Week 1, did what was expected, beating a lower level opponent, and they're at number 9. 8, I've got Missouri. So they demolished Murray State 51-0. The Missouri offense was great with 51 points, 489 total yards, 300 passing, 189 rushing. And then the Missouri defense was also great. They didn't even allow Murray State to get to 100 total yards, and also didn't allow a point. They allowed 85 yards and 5 first downs. But Missouri was never going to be troubled by Murray State. They dominated and are at number 8. 7th, I've got Alabama. So Alabama remains at number 7, following a 63-0 blowout win over Western Kentucky. The Alabama offense was great. Jalen Milroe put up insane numbers. He completed 7 of his 9 pass attempts for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that is 22.2 yards per pass attempt, and Milroe also added 79 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Alabama running back Justice Haynes had 4 carries for 102 yards and a score, and true freshman receiver Ryan Williams was great in his college debut, with 2 catches for 139 yards, both going for touchdowns. And then obviously the Alabama defense was great, not allowing a point and allowing just 145 total yards. Alabama, after an easy win, they remain at number 7. 6th, I've got Ole Miss. So they remain at 6 after they had a 76-0 win over Furman. They had a ridiculous offensive performance with 76 points and 772 yards of offense. Quarterback Jackson Dart had a monster game with 418 yards and 5 touchdowns, also added another touchdown on the ground. And receiver Trey Harris also had a huge game with 8 catches for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Ole Miss run game was great with 243 yards, 4 touchdowns on 6.6 yards a carry. And then the Ole Miss defense did what you would expect against an FCS team, not allowing a single point and allowing just 172 total yards. But Ole Miss, after an offensive explosion, their offense looked great. They enter at number 6. Getting into the top 5, at number 5, I've got Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is at number 5 after they beat Texas A&M by a score of 23-13. It wasn't the prettiest win for Notre Dame, but they got the job done. Offensively, they leaned on the run game, rushing for 198 yards and 2 touchdowns while averaging 5.8 yards a carry. And you've got to give a lot of credit to the Notre Dame offensive line, which was very inexperienced, but they faced a tough Texas A&M defensive front in a hostile environment and played well and got better as the game progressed, which really helped the run game get going. But Notre Dame's defense was also great. They dominated for most of this game, holding Texas A&M to just 3.6 yards a play, and Texas A&M also could not throw the ball, including just 12 of 30 pass attempts for 100 yards and 2 picks. But Notre Dame's defense was great. They played a good game overall, and they start the season with a win on the road against a tough Texas A&M team. I've got them at number 5. Fourth, I've got Texas. So Texas was great in the opener against Colorado State, won 52-0. The offense put up 52 points, 525 total yards. Quinn Ewers was great with 260 yards and 3 touchdowns. Texas also ran the ball effectively, rushing for 190 yards and 3 scores. And the Texas defense was great, pitching a shutout and forcing 2 turnovers. Texas did what was expected in week 1. They're at number 4. Next week, they head to Michigan. Third, I've got Oregon. So some people might drop Oregon a little more than I dropped them. I dropped them 1 spot from 2 to 3 after they beat Idaho by a score of just 24-14, and Idaho's an FCS team. But I still think Oregon is one of the 3 best teams in the country. But this is a game that is concerning. They should have won this game by 50 points, not 10. And this was just a really weird game for Oregon, because you look at the box score, and they should have put up a lot more than 24 points. They should easily have been able to double that. As quarterback Dylan Gabriel threw for 380 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Oregon also ran for 128 yards. So when you look at that, Oregon had nearly 500 yards of offense and put up just 24 points, which is really confusing. But Oregon did miss some opportunities. They missed a field goal and turned the ball over on downs 3 times. But Oregon still got the win. It never should have been this close, but I've been falling from 2 to 3. It's the first game of the season. Plenty of time to fix this. Oregon's still a great team. I've got them at number 3. Second, I've got Ohio State. So they move up to 2, but that's really just me moving Oregon down. But Ohio State beat Akron by a score of 52-6. The offense was great. Will Howard looked good in his Ohio State debut, throwing for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. And true freshman receiver had a great debut game with 6 catches for 92 yards and 2 scores. And then the Ohio State defense was also good, allowing 6 points and 177 total yards. Ohio State enters at number 2. And at number 1, I've got Georgia. So Georgia remains at number 1 after a dominant 34-3 win over Clemson. It was a close first half with Georgia up just 6-0 at halftime, but then they dominated in the second half as Georgia outscored Clemson 28-3 and won in convincing fashion. Carson Beck threw for 278 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they also ran the ball well, rushing for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns on 6.3 yards a carry. And the Georgia defense was also dominant, allowing just 3 points, 188 total yards, and allowing just 3.6 yards per play. But Georgia was great in week 1, and they remain my number 1 team after the first week. And my updated playoff predictions. So it's tough to change them this early in the season, and also now that there's a 12-team playoff, 1 week doesn't really impact it a ton. But I'm only going to make one change from my preseason predictions to now, and that is going to be my number 4 seed. I don't really think Florida State's going to make it anymore. They've looked terrible, losing to Georgia Tech and Boston College. And I'm going to change from Florida State to Miami because the 4 seed is likely going to be the ACC champion. And Miami was the only ACC team to look good in week 1. In fact, they were dominant in their win over Florida. So that is my only change to my college football playoff predictions. But those are my week 1 college football rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications to don't miss any other upcoming videos. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.